Okay, shopkeepers, I guess this is video part 2 because I pushed the wrong dad blame button to resume my repair disassembly. Anyway, I took those 8 nuts off right here and just hit that with a hammer, going around there a couple times, and this extension housing for the that's down there in the pit. So when we need that, we're gonna go down there in the pit. But anyway, I couldn't get the spindle nut off. I couldn't get the heat to it very good with that extension on it, so I'll put a little heat on that nut and then we'll get that right off. Okay, boys and girls, that didn't take just a second to get that nut off. Now you can use an 1 3/8" socket on there or a 35 millimeter, or you can use channel locks or vice grips, but they'd be awful hard to get that nut off. It was pretty tight. Anyway, this actually is the hub flange of the wheel bearing, and the rotor is trapped in behind. So we get, you can see back in there is where the between that metal plate there, that's a little shim for your actually it's not a shim, it's the rock guard, that piece of metal there. But we'll put a pry in here and then we'll smack that rotor or that hub a few times there and get that off. I won't be able to show you that, me doing it, because I don't have a place to set my camera, so I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I threaded a couple of the bolts back in just a little bit into the bearing hub, and then taking my hammer and hitting on that bolt to drive the bearing hub out. And the same thing over here on this side. And that's kind of hard on the head of the bolt, but then you can see that we're starting to open that gap up there pretty good between the right in there. So we'll let you go sit back down in your easy chair while I finish getting this off. Well,
asking for your, I mean, it's
just
more than just we're buddies.
Just to show a little progress. We almost got it. I was feared maybe you was getting anxious, so I'd bring you up to date. Okay, now got that pulled loose and took the 13 millimeter bolt out right there for the wire on the wheel speed sensor going to the ABS, and we have to unhook it here and there, and then the wire connectors up in there, and this will all slide off. Okay, we got the assembly off, laid over here, and now we need to drive all 8 of them bolts out so we can separate the rotor from the hub. And we're just gonna put a drift hammer on there and hit the other hammer so we don't mess up the threads, and push it right on through. Now, so you know, I'll hold that one hammer that's on the bottom, I'll hold it still, and then I'll hit that hammer with the top hammer to drive them studs out. That's how you do it without messing up the threads. That took all of about 40 seconds. And we'll turn this over and then we'll knock that rotor off. Anyway, got that knocked loose, and then the rotor is kind of notched out, so it has to be facing a certain direction. I'll set that on there and pick it up and leave the camera. And then, well, that's how you do that. And I haven't got the bearing yet. It was supposed to be here with another delivery and didn't come. Usually they come with a new wheel speed sensor right here, and I hope it does, because I wouldn't doubt if the sensor is bad, but the bearing is bad. And anyway, all you got to do is just reverse that process, and see, these bolts are splined just like a wheel stud. So when you put them in, you have to drive them flush. And the end of the CV shaft, I did have to smack it with a hammer a couple times to break it loose of the spline in here. And you want to be careful. Either use a drift hammer like we did with these bolts, or make sure you hit that good and square, so you don't mess up the threads. You'd be out there with a thread file trying to clean it up so you can get the nut back on it. But I'm replacing this one because it's blowed out and been run that way for a while, and been full of water, and it's a mess. But anyway, just reverse that process, and that's how you get them apart, boys. And as always, have a good night.